resistance to communicating, our emotions. Yeah. So we've heard about, emotional intelligence and all that. So then we look at the forces, that triggers why the world becomes uncertain for people, and why we have become intolerant in our relationship, in trusting one another. These are the forces, the culture of scarcity, the culture that says, you are not enough. They're looking at the failure, not looking at the future. So this culture also failed to understand that there are unique individuals, and so the fear of shame, of not enough, has led people to isolate themselves, to keep away from any possible solution that may be out there. Then, of course, we look at insecurity, that the feeling of insecurity leads to micromanagement sentiments in our organizations, and of course, pride and leaders becoming apprehensive and toxic relationship. Then we talk about turning the crisis to courage. We look at various examples, because we are in a world that is that people are highly medicated for different reasons. People live on medication, and I also suggested that instead of you living on medication, why not try to live on meditation and mindfulness? We look at us saying, let us access our spiritual source to gain courage in times of crisis. We look at various ones. So what we want to finish up with is to look at the new paradigm of vulnerability. What are those benefits? What are those strengths that comes with the heart of vulnerability? I want us to understand that vulnerability is not a weakness, but a source of courage. A source of courage. As we put ourselves out, make decisions, determination to be opened, we also see that we open ourselves to greater new strides, possibilities, new achievements. And so it's so important for us to know that vulnerability will become a source of courage. It facilitates openness within leadership. Openness within leadership. We are also in a world that leadership are careful to express themselves among one another. They are careful of what they say. Depends what kind of leadership that is. Is it political leadership? Is it a corporate leadership? People don't want to exchange, their core. It's a feeling of insecurity. People don't trust themselves. There is that lack of trust capital. But through vulnerability, we see that openness is facilitated. It makes collaboration possible. As mentioned earlier, even yesterday, that collaboration is one of the key factors in leadership agility. The new paradigm of vulnerability, it improves the total well-being of employees and management. We've had one example that where an employee walks up to you as an executive or as an MD or CEO and tells you that, look, I had a better offer, I will be leaving your company. Are we able to embrace such a news, or we're going to discard it? The paradigm of vulnerability is saying that we have to be vulnerable, we have to embrace, and those are the things that is coming up. So in an employee that is being received or embraced, even despite an offer somewhere else, and as a leader or a managing director, and you welcome an employee over a cup of tea to just say, why do you want to leave us? That might mean a lot to such employee. That might make such employee to, change his or her mind, even if the difference in the income or salary is up to $100 or $1,000. Because when we embrace this vulnerability, it improves the total well-being of employee and the management to sync together, to work together in any organization, even spiritual environment, or even volunteers. Volunteers also, they have that feeling that they are also an important part of the organization. So, but by employing this helps us to have a total well-being of our employees. Now, it gives room for creativity. It gives room for creativity within organization. Vulnerability of a leader enables him to listen and to hear other people, to hear other potential, to get the contribution, to get the ideas, innovations. As we also mentioned yesterday, it welcomes innovation. It's an enabler. This vulnerability is an enabler. If we are looking for growth, we have to be vulnerable. We have to be opened. And this gives room for creativity within the organization. Because if we want to move from one level to the other, we need to be creative. And most of the times, as leaders, we are not island. We need to know when we have to be open, and it gives room to creativity. And where we have embraced the people that work with us, we find out that they understand the mind of the leader. And you find out that there will be less supervision. There will be less supervision, less staff supervision. Because now, when you often embrace this theory of vulnerability, these are what it creates. They've known your mind. They know your mind already, and they always like to do what you have actually said. This is the way we are going. So you find out that it becomes not necessary for you to stay on top of the staff before they do what they have to do, before they speak the right language, before they take up certain things. So there will be less supervision. You remember in the earlier times, we mentioned that the forces of not enough create insecurity. And that's why when there's so much insecurity in a leader, you find out that there is so much of micromanagement, that everything revolves around him. He gives instructions. He oversees little things. But when this vulnerability has been part of the practice, we will always see that creativity will come and there will be less energy on supervising qualified staff. Again, the new paradigm of vulnerability is that it increases capacity for opportunity. It increases capacity for opportunity. The capacity is all facets and all, department and structure of the organization. Either you are running a small, medium business, a small, medium church. When you play the heart of vulnerability, you increase the capacity for opportunity. Because certain opportunity will not come where there is no capacity. So in us being vulnerable in our leadership style, we encourage capacity. And capacity is also the increase of the resources that we have, the resourceful people that we have, the specialists that we have, the gifted ones that we have. We're able to, to encourage the gift that is around us and to encourage them. And that is why I believe that our vulnerability style can help to increase the capacity of our organization, and we are ready for opportunities that may come to the organization. Actually, it increases it. And as individuals, leaders, we find out that when you play this art of vulnerability, you run a kind of a frequency. You engage an attraction. You engage an attraction. You become more approachable. You become more approachable. And that is why the new paradigm of vulnerability increases our capacity. Now, you will also discover that the vision is easily captured. The vision is easily captured. Permit me to just explain this from my beliefs as a Christian. There is a word that says that write the vision down, that he that reads it may run with it. Writing the vision down, making it plain, it's you are being vulnerable with the very vision that you carry inside of you, because you cannot hide it from those who are to run from with it. You cannot hide it from your wife. Even sometimes I know as men you want to hide or protect your financial plans or whatsoever. No, sometimes we need to be vulnerable. Let our wife knows where you have the finance. Let them know where you have business investment. Let them know where you have invested money, or you have engaged yourself in one transaction or the other. It's part of vulnerability, and the spouse will capture your financial vision. We capture a financial vision. So I'm just saying that using this, the art of vulnerability helps our vision to be captured by those around us, because we become more open, we express it, we paste it all around ourselves. The vision of our business, where do we want to be in 5 years? What is our wish for our business, for our church, for our community? What is our vision? So in practicing this helps the vision to be easily captured by other people. Now, the new paradigm of vulnerability is that it creates empathic environment. Empathic environment where there is vulnerability, because vulnerability helps us to show love even when we don't receive it. As leaders, it helps us to show love where we don't receive it. It helps us to be selfless where people have not even paid us attention, where they have not even come to our aid. It helps us to be selfless. And we find out that, by engaging this vulnerability, we are able to measure as well, to determine our environment. Is it empathic enough, or is it toxic? So our responsibility when we engage the heart of vulnerability, we give it all. We give it all. We share it. We give our time. We give our resources. At times, even before you look at your family needs, you look at the needs of your staff who are working for you in your organizations, in your business. You look at that, and you put yourself in their position. You become more sensitive to their need. And when people talk about selfless leadership, a selfless leadership without empathy is not balanced. The selfless leadership is simply considering the need of other people or those that are around you. Consider the need of other people. That's what makes you a selfless leadership. And so, in using vulnerability, you exhibit more of selflessness in your leadership. And that's what creates an empathic environment, which surely will flow back to you. And it flows onto them that are with you or that are following you. Again, in an organization where the leader embraces vulnerability, we find out that it births the sense of ownership in the organization. It births a sense, it gives a sense of ownership. Because many people can be with you in whatever organization, or whichever organization you are leading, but they see themselves in transit. They see themselves in transit. But as you display your authenticity through vulnerability, being open, being ready to discourse, I believe for those who are of like minds, they'll begin to develop the sense of ownership in that organization. They start to develop that, no matter what the size of an organization is. That's why when you talk about major brands, the major brands in the world, what is obtainable in China is obtainable in Johannesburg. The same culture that is displayed in Bangkok is the same that is displayed in the United States. So if you buy a bottle of Coke or a can of Coke in Johannesburg and taste the one in America, you find out that it's not much of a difference. A franchised. It's not much a difference. And so it is that whichever thing that we do, that when we, embrace this vulnerability, because let's look at it. Every of these major brands, I believe they have their secrets. There's no way you can hide the secret from your partner or from your franchisee in Bangkok and you expect them to produce the same thing. It's not possible.
But you must have non-revelation law. That if you give out this secret, we will sue you this, and you
Of course. There will be a non-disclosure agreement. But still, you still have to give it out anyway. Yeah. And it's vulnerability. Your secret is vulnerable. Yet, it's for the betterment of the business, and that makes the business, the organization more powerful. More powerful. So it's so important that this vulnerability idea birth a sense of ownership. The same thing in family. We cannot hide anything. That's the rule of marriage. We cannot hide anything from our wives. We cannot. You cannot hide your dietary requirement. If, for example, if you are not to eat too much salt, your doctor said don't eat too much salt. You cannot. When you get home, you must tell her, look, I don't eat too much salt.
You don't tell her you don't
You will salted. You understand? You can't tell her, no, I don't eat. I've been told not to eat beans. It's not good for me. So you don't want to see beans on the table. But if you did not tell her, because you know it's not, she will continue to cook it for you and mix it with what you are eating. I believe in marriage as well, this idea of vulnerability can actually bring peace. It will lessen competition. Sir, what brings peace in the home? Vulnerability brings peace in the home. We cannot hide everything. A certain man, I heard a story of a certain man who always keep everything. He has a safe where he locks everything. He locks even the key to the kitchen grocery cupboard. He locks the key even to where he keeps the money, to where he keeps the jewelry, to where he keeps everything that has to do with his wealth. He locks it. And then they said the man died and swallowed it and died. And then when he died, they said they had to turn the man over around. They shook his dead body so that the key can fall out. And then they go and open it. Vulnerability has to be practiced to have an harmonious home, harmonious family, harmonious life, and all sorts. So this that we're discussing is not just about our organization, our businesses. It goes to our home. It's applicable to all aspects of life where we have taken a leading role. We need often to apply it, and we'll see peace. And of course, it goes on the last point that the new paradigm of vulnerability is an open door to better love life. Open door to better love life. If I may ask gentlemen here, when last did we tell our wife, I love you? You are waiting. Okay, General said, he's this morning.
Because you are seen at this morning. My wife is here. So every morning, every day, afternoon and night, I do that.
You know, because vulnerability is not weakness. So to tell your wife, oh, I love you, is not weakness. You know, I know people said, oh, we didn't grow up like that. But there are other ways by which we can communicate love. Either you are the first to buy the wedding anniversary card to say, babe, I've been trying to call my wife babe, but it's not part of our word. She will look at me somewhere, babe. No, we have our name. We shortcut names. So, but would you be the first person to buy a card to say happy wedding anniversary, or you are waiting for her to do it first? Let's think about it. So, but when you engage these acts of vulnerabilities, there are things that you will take the lead in that will actually change, the atmosphere to a better atmosphere. You know, so this vulnerability, I'm still learning about it, and I'm still learning to practice it more. I bring it out in some times. It becomes a tool in my pocket, and it can be a tool in your pocket too. Yes, sir.
What's the greatest threat to vulnerability?
The greatest threat to vulnerability. Now the question is the greatest threat to vulnerability. I believe the greatest, or one of the greatest threats, will be disappointment. Human disappointment. And also resistance. Betrayal. Betrayal. That's what I even mean by disappointment. But you see, you don't feel what you've done from the bottom of your heart.
This response has to do with risk. There's a difference between threat and risk. But I'm talking about threat.
Threat,
not the risk.
not the risk.
If you say betrayal is a risk, but threat, I feel the greatest threat is pride.
The greatest threat is pride. Okay.
Pride in the sense that, for you to bring yourself to the level of being vulnerable,
Okay.
you want to, why should I say so first?
Okay.
Why do you need to say I love you?
Okay.
Instead of going this way, why not go the other way? You know?
Yeah.
So I think particularly, both in corporates and, family
setting.
pride oftentimes, makes one not to allow himself or accept himself
Be vulnerable. Yes.
as one.
Yes. In the earlier slides, I mentioned the forces.
Right. Okay.
The forces. And those forces, the sense of insecurity, because every pride has insecurity inbuilt into it. So it's a threat, actually, to embracing that vulnerability. Yes, I think you just put it in a good context, which will also review that these are the threats to you being vulnerable, to practicing or embracing vulnerability. So we can see here on the last note that, it becomes an open door to better love life. A lot of people pray for marriage. A lot of people pray for good job. They pray for good job. But they don't practice vulnerability. An open door is a common language that everybody wants something good. this can give you that open door to better love. We have just mentioned that, expressing our love. But again, as an employee, there will be a time that even employee or the leader needs to be vulnerable, because there may be certain demands on you that requires you to do certain things, and it creates an open door to better love life, better working environment, better working conditions. So these are the new paradigm of vulnerability that we will experience in our organizations, in our family, when we embrace the art. And on this, in summary, the art of vulnerability is the new dimension to accelerate courage, to exert power, a strategic art to win in difficult times or difficult situations. And this is a theory which teaches leaders to numb pride and embrace dialogue in the time of crisis and on facade imperfection. Thank you very much. So that's all I've got to say today. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Leadership, the art of vulnerability, and be conscious of it. And I understand why Arumi was trying to bring you to emotional intelligence, because that actually is one of the things you are going to master. Of emotional intelligence. Your people used to be on emotional intelligence.
Yes, we've done that.
So it's
We've
like
done that.
are you trying to say that this also covers emotional intelligence, or it's one subset of it? Are you interested?
I would say it's an overflow. It's an overflow. This art is what also enables our emotional intelligence to come into play. Yes, because an average of us have got it. We have social competence, we have relational competence, and all sorts. So we've all got it, but sometimes we withdraw. He has just asked that what are the threats to this vulnerability, which is pride.
It's pride.
He said that disappointment, what did he use? The threat, yes. Yeah. Yes, and pride. Yes. You said something. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah. You mentioned that word betrayal as well. You find out that when